You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I am your host, Nesbit. Today, Vysteria. So it's a song about fear, a song about the media, a song about mass panic and mass hysteria. So released July 3rd of 2020, this song dropped right at the peak of the pandemic. Mid-lockdown, pre-vaccine, it seemed like everyone was being whipped into a frenzy by constant doom and gloom from the news. There's constant death rates and death tolls on the TV, worst case scenarios from every talking head. And if you're like me, you probably are 100% burnt out on coronavirus talk. And even the thought of hearing a podcast about it is enough to make you want to scream. So good news, this episode of the podcast is not going to be about that. So Vysteria, the song, even though it deals with the virus, the song really isn't about that at all. It's more about how the powers that be used the pandemic for political gain and the collateral damage from how it was handled by fear-mongering news outlets and self-serving politicians. This is Vysteria.
The virus was first identified at a market in the city of Wuhan
ground
last
zero
month.
for the illness sparking global unease.
Will affect young people.
Can stay suspended in the air for up to a half hour.
It is airborne.
Is a hospitalization rate of 12% of infected people.
The ravages of COVID-19.
Is the coronavirus
the number of deaths
from
here
God?
in the United
We're dying
States
with
Up to 1.7 million people can potentially die
The U.S.
from
death toll as a
COVID-19.
When you're
percentage of
looking
our
at over
population.
210,000 dead bodies.
I feel like we're all just being sent to slaughter.
See your parents because you were afraid they could kill them.
15 days to stop the days. We can
flatten the curve. Flattening the curve.
An assembly line of death and
But if
misery.
Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking
There's
it.
no reason to be walking around with a mask.
He wants us to inject bleach.
The virus stops with every vaccinated
You're not going to get COVID if you have
Vaccinated people do not carry
no
the virus,
longer
don't
need
get
to wear a
sick.
mask.
Horse dewormer should never be used. The numbers being reported.
I literally got it from a doctor.
Death toll from this disease are so dire.
An assembly line.
This is really the first time that we ever kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say went out on a limb to talk about what was going on, but we kind of did. And it's a part of history, and it's a part of where we were at that time, and everything was at a standstill, and we just wanted to write a song about it.
You know, it had to do directly with what we were seeing around us, what we were hearing from our neighbors, but mainly from what we were seeing on television and in the media.
Yeah, like I said, the timeline, the theme of this is just, you know, it was just during that time we were writing this, and, you know, it was really affecting us because things kept getting canceled. You know, we were getting ready to hit the road, and, you know, every day there was some new shit that was just coming out that, you know, every week it was like, here goes another fest going down, or another tour plan that, you know, got sidelined, you know, so it was really hard for us, and it really bummed us out and almost, I guess, kind of angered us a bit, and maybe we put a little bit of that anger into the theme of this song.
You know, we were about to go on the road, and we didn't know what was going on. It was March of 2020 at this time, and we had just come back from Texas in late February, and you know, they have the big South by Southwest convention there. It's the biggest musical convention in the world, and that happens in March. And when we got back, we had gotten word that they had canceled that due to this, and that was the kind of the first big thing that we started to realize that something's going on here. And once the full on lockdown happened, that's when I had the idea to write about the things that we were seeing, not necessarily what our opinions were, but the things that we were seeing. And through that, I wouldn't say our opinions came out in the song, but our sound advice to the people of the world for their own mental health. I think that message came out clear.
This all kind of came together when the COVID thing was really starting to rear its ugly head in, the early months of 2020. And, we all felt like, it was very early in the stages, and we felt like there was a lot of hype about all this, and, it was almost maybe taken a little bit too far than it needed to be in the media. Obviously the media is always doing things to scare and, just keep people distracted from the real shit that's going on in the background. And so we just kind of came up with that word. It's a mix of It's a mix of virus and hysteria, which is, mass hysteria, which is created a lot of times by the media. Jarvis came up with that, and I thought it was fucking really cool.
The word Vysteria, I was talking with Athenar from the band Midnight, who I also manage, and it was, it was right there when the pandemic was going down, and I was trying to think of a title for this song, and I thought, can you think of anything like here's the message of the song. This is what we're trying to talk about. This mass hysteria created by the media, when people should really be bonding together on an issue like this and trying to look for a way out instead of the panic and the dread and the fear. And I guess from me saying hysteria, he said Vysteria. I thought that was so great because, even kind of a play off of, since we're in heavy metal, like, Def Leppard's Hysteria. This is Night Demon's Vysteria. So that's where that came from. He aided in us in that. And at that point, I just put pen to paper and decided to write out an actual definition. Since we're creating a word here, we need to have an official definition for this. What's the dictionary entry under Vysteria so that nobody's confused? It was even a thing when we made the music video for it. Let's put that out right in front before anything happens musically so that people would understand what we're really trying to say here.
The meaning of hysteria, it's a media viral hysteria, and Jarvis came up with it, I think. And it's funny because there's the Def Leppard hysteria, and hysteria, mass hysteria is a something that's been used forever, and we ended up kind of coming up with this term. And
let me just read you the definition of Vysteria. Vysteria is a noun. It is an exaggerated or uncontrollable emotion or excitement incited by the media, especially among a group of people during a pandemic. So take that for what it is, but I hope that you would take it in a literal sense, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about watching television and seeing the words "no hope." The media, you've heard the term divide and conquer. The government powers and the powers that be, usually, if you want to control somebody, you have to divide a group of people, because what that does is it causes infighting amongst themselves, and then somebody needs to step in and control that situation. I've never in my lifetime seen a bigger example of that than what happened here. And we lived through that thing. We're still kind of living through it. And the media's job their job used to be to just report the facts and report the news. But when you have a 24-hour news cycle, it becomes very opinionated. The news is one sentence, there's a virus outbreak. We don't yet have a vaccine. And simply the truth is we don't know how to curb this thing or how to keep people safe. We don't know. Nobody knew. But they claim that they did. And these are businesses that most of the public puts their trust into.
But ultimately it's just about, the media and how they, what do they call it? They can't, they use crises for gain, There's a lot of background to that, Some famous, I don't know, rich guy once said that, you can't ever let a good crisis go to waste. So, there's always something happening. There's always something. It's like now that the virus thing has kind of died away, here we go. Here's now war with Russia. That's the next thing, Sometimes you just kind of got to wonder, like, how much of this shit is planned or how much of it is real. I mean, I lost an uncle to this fucking thing, and, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not real, but could it have been, handled differently? Then maybe, but you know what? I'm not a fucking government leader to decide how to handle these things. So, but we gotta question things. You gotta just question things. I mean, that's the punk rock, heavy metal, thing, ethos or whatever, right? Question everything. Don't believe the fucking media. And it's sad that a lot of our peers and, in the metal and punk scene just fell right in line with all this, without even questioning it. It's like, hey, what happened? Like, what the fuck? So it's just a song questioning it, make you think. That's all. That's what music, some of music, that's what it was. Some of the best music does, it makes you think about shit.
So I heard this quote one time that says, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. So I think that was kind of where we were at the time. There's a lot of, people trying to tell you what to do and how to act. And a lot of it was, warranted, but a lot of it was a little overkill. So,
yeah, it's not, we just use the whole virus thing as a current topic. You know what I mean? That was the new wolf, or whatever. The new boogeyman at that time was the virus thing and the pandemic and all that.
I think the song is about just empowering yourself, and no matter what, whether there's a epidemic, pandemic, somebody's always going to try to keep you in some sort of down mode, keep you afraid, keep you, just obey, control, listen, don't talk back, don't think for yourself. There's a lot of that happens every day in this world, whether it's intentional or not. Even though we're saying that you can't be completely afraid, you still need to live your life. There's a way to live your life, but also be respectful for the people and how they were dealing with the virus and pandemic and all that. So, we really wanted people to just remember that you do have a mind of your own and you don't have to just listen to what you're being told. That was really the main point. We just wanted people to understand that, like, hey, we're still humans and we still have gone through a lot in our lives, and this is just another, setback. But we'll get through it because we will.
Society is closed. Come again another day. Isolate. Cancel your life. Pandemic. Stay away from me. Epidemic of your mind. Disorder, fear, inside. It's only then you realize we're dehumanized. Vysteria.
The first time I think I heard the, initial Vysteria idea was with Armand, I believe. He had the idea that he came up with. I think it was just an instrumental thing that he might have done to a click, and one day he was like, hey, let's jam on this idea.
I guess, you know what? I guess the inspiration came from just, where can we go next? What haven't we done? What other kind of style haven't we really messed with, Besides anything like extreme, black metal or something like that, or, death metal kind of blast beat stuff, which we kind of touched on that a little bit in Kill a Pain, I guess mostly on Dusty's end with the drum part. So I guess, the thrash thing was like, well, yeah, that seems like the next place to go. So I just started fucking around with this part.
Honestly, I think, we wanted to write a song like Vysteria, and we were just trying to figure it out. And, those guys have riff tapes all the time that border this kind of style. And, we're not a band that does this often. And I don't... it's kind of out of the norm for us.
It's something that I had floating around for a while in my riff tapes, quote unquote riff tape file. Sometimes I just sit down with my guitar and just, to do a little bit of a writing session. Sometimes I'll have an idea for something, a style that I want to go for. Or it's just one of those things where I just jam for a little while, with get a good sound going on the guitar. And it's kind of inspiring to just play with a good sounding amp. And then, sometimes just little things pop up. So this is one of those riffs.
Armand had that pretty much done, and I went in and just played some half-assed drums to it, and Jarvis came in and was like, oh, you guys started working on this. All right, let's dive into it then.
I think the initial inspiration to write a thrash song is just, it's like it's something that we haven't done, not that it hasn't been done before, but we have a lot of peers that are, I guess you would consider the next wave of thrash, or the new generation, next gen thrash, I guess you would call it. There's a lot of bands out there that are great at it. I'm not going to name any names because I know I'm going to leave somebody out, but we all know who the bigger ones are of that genre, of that subgenre in our generation. And, we're actually friends with a lot of those bands. And a lot of times, we'll play on gigs together, and we'll kind of be the old school heavy metal band. They'll be the old school thrash band, but we each bring something a little new to the table and infuse it in what we do. However, not that we're a soft band by any means, but I guess we're not as extreme. And I thought, just me personally, I guess I'm not speaking for the band, but, I kind of thought, let's just go there. I mean, let's just do it. Let's write a 3-minute thrash song to end them all. We don't need to, this isn't a shift in direction of what the band does. We just wanted to write something that was really tight sounding and super heavy. And Armand had the perfect ideas, in the riffs for it, in some riff tapes that he had already made. So we just thought, let's just go for it. A 3-minute thrash song to end them all. No disrespect to the other bands. Just basically, we knew that we could encapsulate all of the elements that subgenre is known for in one 3-minute song, and then we can just be done with it, and we can have that song. So that was the idea behind it.
Hey guys, Nesbitt here. If you'd like to support Night Demon and this podcast, the best way to do it is to become a Night Demon subscriber. Not only will you be doing your part to support a true heavy metal band out there really living it, you'll also gain access to a ton of extras. Bonus audio content, a subscriber-only merch store with rare items from the band's archives. You can stream never-before-heard demos and unearth live concerts from the live vaults. Communicate with the other Night Demon diehards on an exclusive subscriber forum, and gain early access to all press releases, album pre-orders, new merchandise, and a ton more. And another thing that I think is pretty cool is Night Demon will be donating 10% of every subscription fee to the Metal Cares Foundation, which is a charitable fund the band started in 2014 to aid those in our metal community. So head over to nightdemon.net/subscriber and join us as we make heavy metal history together as one. And on a side note, I'll personally think you're a grade A badass.
So when I heard his original idea, like kind of listening back to some of these demos, it would have been the G Jam from August of 2019. And, he's like, get on the drum kit. And I was like, nah, I don't know, And he's like, come on, man, just go in there and jam on this. So we did. And, if you listen to that demo, it's a little bit all over the place. Armand kind of had a better idea of what he was doing than I did. And, I kind of just fumbled my way through it and just tried to play my best thrash beat, I guess, at the time. And just trying to memorize the parts and figure out what the heck I was doing in that demo. And it's a little all over the place.
All right. The whole bass intro thing was just an idea I was playing with to, we had talked about doing something where me and Jarvis kind of started a song together on like guitar and bass, like a harmony part together, And so that was kind of just a real rough idea of something that could work, maybe. Obviously, we scrapped that, So yeah, then it jumps into thing. I think I had Dusty just kind of jump in on the parts and lay a little scratch drum track down. And that's that part, that demo, G Jam from August of 2019. the pre-chorus thing, the dan and dan dan and dan down. I think that was something that Jarvis had. That's something that we worked on, that we threw in there when we were actually jamming on it in the room.
G-Jam was the working title, I guess, of a song that Armand was writing. It was in the key of G. Simple enough. That's kind of, all songs start with just a basic working title to kind of recognize it, I guess, these days in your hard drive or whatever, right? Or in your phone. And so, yeah, this was a really cool idea. I mean, it started out with this kind of clean sounding, very sinister but kind of almost classical thing. And then gets into this kind of downbeat, real thrashy kind of thing. And then you have a riff that is similar to what is Vysteria. We did a lot of stuff to this. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these riffs came out in later Night Demon material, but if you listen to this, it's a really cool song, but it's really not recognizable to Vysteria. I mean, we kind of took I would say we took inspiration from this song and took it into the direction that ended up being the final track.
Obviously the chord changes are a little different from what ended up being Vysteria in the verse. And the whole jam out with the drums at the end, I don't know. I think that was kind of all I had, and just let Dusty go for it for a while. So that's what that is.
The bulk of the ideas of Vysteria are in that demo. It's kind of funny to listen back to it now and be like, oh, okay, damn, there's some good stuff in there that we kept, The intro, the kind of like the main riff in the verse and stuff like that. It was just coming up with the right ideas and to complement everything together with what we were playing on our instruments. Looking at some of these other demos, some other stuff that was going on, the song didn't happen overnight, we worked on it for, I don't know, from August of 2019 until March of 2020, and it took us that long just to kind of iron everything out. So it didn't happen overnight.
The next demo, Fuck, or it's actually we changed the key from G to F sharp. So it's F sharp sign CK. I think Armand got creative when he named that one.
Okay, riff tape entitled F sharp CK. So the letter F and the number sign, which is also known nowadays as the hashtag CK. I titled it that because now this is after us getting in the room and working on this thing a bit more, and also putting it into the key that ended up sticking and ending up in the final. It's the final key that is in Vysteria. And as you can hear on that one, a lot more of the parts are there that ended up on, being Vysteria. There's a few things that are a little bit longer than they ended up being on the record.
Armand's next riff tape, you can hear the ideas, they're all there. But we just had to really kind of, wrap our head around it and, really figure it out.
That whole thing at the end of this, that was a throwaway kind of chorus. So, just another little evolution of what would become Vysteria.
But this is basically a guitar demo that he had done after we had gotten together as a band and had mostly fleshed out what the riffs were going to be. So it's very similar here. There are some different chords in there, and the rhythmic patterns are a bit different. It's actually cool to go back and listen to this because although it's very close to what we ended up with, it's sometimes just by changing one note can change the entire feel of something, or by changing one chord. And you can hear that in the pre-chorus. It kind of goes to this different chord instead of the open E chord. And, it's like things like this you forget about because you end up with the final song after working on it for so long and it gets stuck in your head. But yeah, that was the idea behind this one. The song is really starting to take some life here. With the first live demo, that is just obviously a way of us kind of hearing what we actually sound like. It's funny that like when you're writing songs with the full band, a lot of times when you're really stoked on a song, on how it's going, you don't really hear it for what it is. You definitely need to record yourself and listen back. Even if you're not playing it the best, you still need to have some kind of reference like, hey, here's what we really sound like. Here's what's really going on. Like, it's when you're writing something and everybody's learning it at the same time, even if you think you're almost there, a lot of times you don't really know what the drums are doing or what, I won't know sometimes what the guitar is doing, even though it's only one other guitar. But, I'm focused on playing what I'm playing. It's something new, and I'm focused on trying to play it as well as I can. And your memory just goes too. I mean, you're starting to memorize structures and your muscle memory too. If you're playing something different than you're not used to playing, there's a big learning curve there. So with this first live demo, this is just the song is starting to take place here. Or it's not take place, but the song is starting to take form. And, we just needed some kind of reference of what we were doing in the jam room to go back and just go, okay, here's the basics of it, of what's happening. This is where Night Demon really comes in and fine tunes things like we always do. And that's why things take us so long. But in the end, every detail matters to us.
When you listen to like the live demo from January that we did, you can tell the song is starting to take shape and that we were really starting to kind of hone in on what we were doing. But with everything, there's revisions that happen. We were really kind of ironing that song out while we had time. Here it is, let's just knock it out and we can iron out any parts that we really need to by jamming, and we have some time before we actually have to record this thing, so there's not many variations, but there are. You can tell that we started really buckling down on it and really concentrating on how to put it together where it made sense for us, and I'm really happy with the way it came out.
In this next live demo, things are progressing here. There's no guitar or bass in the bridge section. That's because the stuff that Dusty was doing on the drums, the drum roll is, it's super awesome, and we loved it. It was just really hard to wrap our head around because we're doing a completely different rhythm. And it's kind of like we just wanted to hear that without anything else to kind of go, well, should we try and play with him on that? What do we do? What we ended up doing is, like I said, a completely different thing rhythmically, but you just have to count the timing in your head while you're doing it. And, you know, I mean, it's a bit of a mindfuck, but that's what makes a cool song. When you can, you know, the song's pretty straightforward, and then when you can go into something like that, that's the kind of stuff that excites us. We're still trying to write songs that impress us, you know, songs that we go, whoa, I want to hear that again. I want to rewind it just to that part. And this is a prime example of that.
I remember also our buddy Roger Camaro coming up with, you know, some of these ideas for the end of the song where it kind of thrashes out. Well, not thrashes out, but, you know, the big ending after the last chorus, and we go into that outro section. I believe Roger kind of had that, and he was like, you guys need to write something like this, you know, and it's kind of cool to think back on it now because, you know, without some of these demos and stuff to go off of, it's kind of a blur for me, you know, just like most stuff with this band.
It's definitely the thrashiest song in the catalog. Real proud about taking it to that level. You know, just another thing showing people and also challenging ourselves that we can pretty much do anything, you know. It keeps things fun and exciting for us.
It's got that. I always say that our songs have the pre-thrash beat. You know, songs like Ritual, Night Demon, you know, even like Full Speed Ahead, Welcome to the Night. You know, they all have this kind of like upbeat snare, but it's not that thrash snare. And this is the first time that we ever dove into a song where I played the drums like that. And, you know, luckily I'm able to pull that off and have it in my wheelhouse, you know. Definitely one of the harder songs to play. You know, like Kill the Pain was one of the hardest songs to write. Vysteria wasn't necessarily that difficult to write. You know, it was like once we kind of wrapped our heads around it and really came up with a structure, it wasn't too bad. But to play that song from start to finish without making any mistakes and keep the intensity and to play all the notes, I mean, it's fast. It's definitely a song that like makes my hands cramp. And I know the guys with the picking pattern, you know, if we're not warmed up and we go to play that song, it kind of beats us up a little bit. So I think it's the most demanding song from us to be able to pull off.
I don't know if I'd say that this is the heaviest Night Demon song. It's the thrashiest Night Demon song. I define heavy in different ways. Some people define it as how low is your guitar tuned, how hard are the drums hit, you know, how low is the bass frequency, things like that. I think that you can have a song in standard tuning and sing melodic and have it be heavy. It's about the groove, and it's about how it hits you in the gut. So I'm not going to say this isn't the heaviest Night Demon song. I don't know really what is. I think that's subjective, but I think it's our thrash metal song through and through.
So that's it for part 1 of Vysteria. Next week, we'll wrap it up with a breakdown of the guitar parts, the drums, the cover art, multiple mixes with some notable names, and some major controversy about the 7-inch singles. So be sure to check out the bonus section of nightdemon.net. We have Armand's original riff tape for this song. We have the first and second live demos by the band, the full demo highlighting Dusty's drum fills, and an early instrumental alternate take of Vysteria. The nightdemon.net subscriber section has grown into a huge archive of Night Demon related content, demos, alternate mixes, unreleased songs, full live shows, posters, hundreds of photos, and all the visuals that go along with this podcast. So be sure to check it out at nightdemon.net. Until next week, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time. All the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.